Chapter 5 Forest Refuge. I don't know what I thought. I guess it was that somehow Chris and Alan would magically appear. As we walked, hiked, and limped in the days that followed, I looked for them, sure they would be just around the next tree. Every creak from a tree, every rustle of leaves, I would jump and look. In my mind, there were only two outcomes. It would be my brother and friend, or it would be soldiers from the camp. In some ways, that feeling followed me all the way home and stayed with me there for years. If I could only turn quickly enough, there they would be. Jess's journal. A high-pitched whine in Jess's ear woke her with a start. Her body ached, burned in places, and her feet were throbbing. Again she heard the whine at her ear. It was a mosquito, damned early in the season and hungry for what little blood it could find. Jess slapped at it and then stared at the masses of scratches on her arms and legs. What a night it had been. They had been too busy running for their lives to even feel their injuries until now. Erin's eyes flickered open, pupils dilated in fear, her body tensed. She sat up, disoriented and looking around her wildly. What? Where? It's okay, Eri. Everything's okay. It's just a mosquito come to finish us off. Jess joked to her friend and was delighted to see her manage a weak smile in return. It felt so damn good to have her best friend in the world back. She hadn't had any bad dreams, and despite their bruises and scratches and swollen feet, she felt as if she and Erin were the two luckiest people in the world right now. And then her thoughts flashed to Alan and Chris. Had they gotten out? She imagined a reunion, and then all four of them setting off together and heading home to Belton. She scanned the trees, and fear and bitterness resurged inside her. How could they possibly find each other when Jess had no idea where they were? It was at this point that her stomach rumbled painfully, making its presence and its yawning emptiness known. Jess looked around. Nothing but trees and more trees and the now quiet, gurgling stream at their feet. Her heart plummeted. What in the hell could you eat in a forest? The sun was slipping down, casting long shadows around them. They wouldn't get far in the dark, not without moonlight, and Jess had time to escape with just that and a convenient thunderstorm in mind. She turned back to Erin, who was now crouched by the stream, digging her long fingers into the mud near the base of a plant that was growing in the shallow waters. A bulrush-like appendage at the top of the stem waved in protest as Erin tugged at the entire plant, pulling it out, roots and all. In a few months, the spear that was just now beginning to emerge would turn to a dark brown. For now, it was a creamy color, barely yellow, new growth responding to the slowly warming temperatures. Jess just gaped at her friend and wondered if she had gone absolutely insane. Eri, what are you... Erin turned and shoved the entire plant into Jess's arms. Clean all the mud off, will you? Take special care getting it off the roots and the inside of the plant. I'll be back. And with no further explanation, she walked off, headed away from the stream towards a thick clump of trees. A few minutes later, she was back, one pocket bulging and her shirt held like an apron in front of her, various leaves and flowers sticking out. I saw some ferns, but no fiddleheads. I can't wait until we can pick them. Erin looked over at Jess, who was standing there, looking confused, the cattail dripping mud down her arms. You haven't washed that off yet? What are you waiting for? Aren't you hungry? She laughed at Jess's confused expression. You're holding part of our dinner there, and I'm starving. She gave her friend a small shove. Rinse it off, and I'll explain. If her friend was losing her mind, she was acting particularly calm while doing it, so Jess complied, mystified at the thought of eating some mucky old weed. As she rubbed away mud and waited until the water ran clean, Erin reminisced about camping with her family over the years. You remember how my dad was always into the survival stuff? She laughed as the tears sparkled in her eyes. He used to put on some silly old movie, Red Dawn, and tell us to pay attention because that's how the world would end. She shook her head at the thought. I just thought he was full of it. She finished rinsing off the cattail and was silent for a moment, reliving their loss before she shook off the memory and brought her thoughts back to the present. We can't eat the fiddleheads till they emerge in about 2 weeks, and that's a damn shame. They're the best. We usually pick 'em, cook 'em, and smother 'em in cheese whiz. Delish. She rinsed the rest of the leaves and flowers free of any insects or clinging dirt. Jess wasn't as sure about their dinner plans. You sure this stuff won't make us sick? I mean, if it were food, wouldn't everyone eat it? This earned a giggle from Aaron, who handed her a handful of something resembling giant clover leaves. It's wild, silly, not like a crop that there are tons and tons of. Eat this. It's sorrel, high in vitamin C. She stifled another giggle as Jess put the leaves into her mouth and bit down and made a face. It's sour. Yeah, well, it's good for you, so eat it. Aaron handed her some other leaves, and I actually found a small patch of dandelion. I'm not eating some old weed. Aaron's smile vanished. If you want to survive, you will. This is food, Jess, and it's all we've got. I picked up some acorns, but we need to roast them, and I don't think we should risk a fire yet. We need energy to keep moving and get out of this forest and as far away from those bastards as possible. Her face took on a haunted look. You got us out of that awful place. Now I'll keep us alive, okay? Jess nodded. Her friend really seemed to know her stuff. Really, when she thought about it, she was too hungry to care what it was. Okay, Ari, and stuffed the leaves in her mouth. They weren't bad. They reminded her of the peppery taste of arugula. Her stomach seemed to growl a little less, so whether it was food or not, at least one part of her didn't seem to know the difference. Later, her hand fell to a lump in her pocket, and she retrieved the 3 stale biscuits. They helped provide some substance to the greens they had eaten, and she and Aaron tore into them gratefully. As they ate, the sun dipped below the trees and darkness fell swiftly. The girls finished their sparse meal and took the last few threads of light to wash their arms, legs, and feet in the clear, bracingly cold water. As the darkness enveloped them, they curled into their nest, wrapped their arms around each other, and pulled the blanket close. Within moments, they were both sound asleep.